Hey everybody, this is B-Word of the Bleach Brothers podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to bring your attention to our Linktree. Please visit Linktree/Bleach Bros podcast for the links to all of our socials, streaming sites, and merch. Linktree is linktr.ee/Bleach Bros podcast, all one word. If you enjoy our content, make sure to give us a like and give us a review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Also, invite your friends. And with that, let's get started with the show.
Are you all caught up on podcasts? Are you tired of listening to the same music over and over and need some fresh new tracks? Well, look no further. Gnome here, and I'm teaming up with the Hater, the Tailgater, the Tyrader, and Zuck's favorite prisoner. That's right, Jake from the Bleach Bros podcast. We are bringing you the Hateful Gnomes Music Hut, a bi-weekly mini podcast all about music. We are covering music recommendations, bands, personal stories, concerts, even why Jake listens to the Beebs. Make sure you are following both the Bleach Bros and the Dads on DayQuill for updates. Episodes are alternating on both feeds. Raise the curtain, hit the lights, turn the dials to 11, horns up, we are live, baby.
Bleach Bros podcast is proud to align itself with Jerky Pro, a beef jerky manufacturer established by military and paramilitary veterans.
Available in 3-ounce or 1-pound bags with great flavors such as honey glazed, teriyaki, red hot, apple cinnamon, original, peppered, sweet barbecue, and if you're ballsy enough, nuclear.
Be sure to use our promo code to get some of the best jerky on the market. Use Bleach Bros 5, all lowercase, to take advantage of this offer today.
You are listening to the Bleach Brothers podcast, hosted by Jake the Hater and B-Word.
Welcome into the Bleach Brothers podcast. This is B-Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy Jake, who happened to change zip codes on me this week.
I'm in Vegas.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
in
down
Vegas,
Vegas.
baby.
You're enjoying it. What I don't understand, though, is that you use a hashtag Vegas trip, right? So two different words. So
I tried.
VEGAS trip, right? The problem is that I read it as Vegas strip, and then I don't realize that there should be an additional S in there, and it really pisses me off. And it reminds me back in the day when you used to use hashtags before like they were a thing, and then you would use the hashtag, and I was like, fuck this, Jake, and now here you are today.
Yeah, well, I did that, and I used to use backslashes. Remember when I was in my backslash phase where I'd write like eating, /nighttime, B-word sucks, Vegas strip, /. And you'd be like, I fucking hate this. And so what do you hate worse? Hashtags or backslashes from me?
Social media posts in general from you. Is that fair?
That's not nice, dude, because we run our stuff together and we're bros, and I can't help it that you were actually the illiterate one for once. However, I did write Vegeta or Vegadata trip or something. I couldn't even spell it the first time you made fun of me, and I was going to try to come back with something with Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, 1, you won't get the reference. 2, it doesn't make sense because it's not spelled correctly. 3, I don't want to fucking argue with you anymore because you're already annoyed. And if you get another notification from me, you're probably going to go off the deep end.
I think it. So I still have notifications off on Facebook because fuck all of that noise. So you could do whatever you want to on Facebook. But as far as what was on there, it was like Vigor tip or I don't know what you did.
I don't know what I wrote, dude. It was one of those. I was trying to type fast, and my brother was driving his giant Dodge really fast because I'm staying at my brother's right now. And I was trying to type and do that and have the window down and just afraid my phone's going to fly out the window. You ever have that fear? Like irrational stuff. We've talked about it before, but like little things like, okay, I used to have a fear when I sold women's shoes that when I stood up after like helping the woman, I was going to knee her in the face for no reason. Not like I wanted to knee her face, but I was going to stand up and that accidental knee to the face would happen or something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can understand that. I mean, there's a lot of weird like people just being like uncoordinated and hitting people and whatever.
Yeah, I'm a klutz, dude. So like, but I did want to get into something besides this for tonight's show because we typically do, and to open the curtain like we usually do, in our rundown, the number one thing we always do is banter.
Yes.
And today's show is brought to you by the letter B word, not just for banter.
I have a few stories that I would like to tell that involve the letter B, if you're okay with that.
Let's do it.
So, first story is my wife and I are driving the other day, and she finally found out what a bukkake is. Now, I mean, I'm sure some of our audience knows. For those that don't, it's essentially where, and it's not race related, but I guess it used to be, where a girl or a guy now, or a they, them, whatever the hell they want to call themselves, gets cum from a lot of people on their face. Am I correct with this so far?
It's like a cream of some young guy shower.
Yeah, it's like if you let your creamsicle melt, or 12 people bought creamsicles at the ice cream store and let it melt on one person's face.
It's like a face melted by Hot Boy butter sauce.
It's like when Krispy Kreme has the hot and ready sign on and somebody gets dipped.
Exactly.
So anyways, we're driving my kids to gymnastics. So one, we're trying to edit ourselves because the kids are in the back. Because yes, I am not just a fucking heathen all over the place, people. I want people to know this. I am a good dad. I try really hard. B-Word has been around my children. He can vouch for this. But we're driving and we see a bumper sticker, there's, people still have bumper stickers, not just the vinyls on the back, right?
Well, you do live in Portland, dude. Like everybody's got to coexist.
Well, I want to sidestep that real quick. I do not live in Portland. We always say I live in Portland. I'm adjacent to Portland.
It's the same thing when Perumpians say they live in Vegas, bro. It's the exact
it's not.
Same
I'm in
thing.
a totally different state, though. That's the difference. Like, okay, it'd be different if you were in Kingman, but you were claiming you lived in Vegas.
Okay, it would be the same thing that, like, if you lived in Tacoma and you were like, I live in Pahrump. It's the same thing.
Okay, whatever. Anyways, I'm driving near Portland, I will admit. So we're driving, and this guy's got a bump. Well, it was a guy, so I'm going to ruin that part of the story. But there's a giant rainbow sticker on the back of his car, and it says, "I love getting bukkakeed." Now, at this moment, I look at my wife, and I start chuckling, and she goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe somebody would have that on the back of their car." And I went, yeah. And I know my wife, and you know my wife, B-Word. She's a fucking saint, a great, beautiful, innocent woman. And that is true. I don't know how her and I got together. But I look at her and I finally just go, you know what that means, right? And she goes, well, yeah. And I go, really? You really know what that means? She goes, duh, it's butt stuff. Now, at this point, I go, no, it's not. I mean, butt stuff might have happened before, but it's not butt stuff. And she goes, well, what is it? So now I'm trying to pantomime while driving what this is.
Yeah.
Okay, B-Word.
It's raining men.
Now, mind you, I'm doing this while driving with kids in the back, trying to tell her, and she's like not getting it. It's finally going to just go, splattered all over the face. A bunch of people goes, oh my God, why is he advertising that? Because we drive by with a guy. Now, as I was pantomiming this, I don't know if he looked over and was seeing it, was getting excited. But that's the first reason why this show is brought to you by B, my wife finding out what bukkake means.
So hold that thought, because I'm thinking of the next letter B would be Best Foods mayonnaise, and they'd be in the squirt bottles. And like when you're telling your wife, it looks like you're just holding them up and you're shaking them towards your face and you're squeezing the bottle.
You know what kind of mayonnaise comes in those squeeze bottles? That's the Q-Pie, the best kind of mayonnaise, the Japanese mayonnaise. That's true. It's called Q-Pie. I will tell you, have you ever had that mayonnaise, B-Word, besides at a sushi shop?
Best Foods?
No, Q-Pie. That's the type of mayonnaise it is. Q-Pie, it's from Japan. It's in the squeeze bottles. Like it's in the actual like squeezy bottles, like when we used to have those squeeze it like drinks and stuff.
You lost me, bro, because I was talking about Best Foods. Like
I know, I was saying that Q-Pie mayonnaise is the best, and
that's not even with the letter B. Anyway, what's the letter B?
Oh, fuck! Oh my God, I'm so dumb. You meant because of B. I just thought we were talking about mayonnaise in squeeze bottles. Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry, B-Word. You did lose me. So, 2, I showed today that I am a stupid young male still. So we recently did a Jake-ass episode, right? And I mean, like true males do, we do stupid shit, right, B-Word?
Right.
So I was walking with my dogs, or my brother's dogs. We were walking like to the dog park near his house, right? And we look over and there's one of those grates in the ground that holds like electrical and the sprinkler shit and stuff, right? And
like a little utility hole. It's got like a cover on it.
Yeah, like a utility box. And there's bees flying out of it. So of course I'm like, there's a bee's nest in there, Caleb. And he goes, yeah, there is. And I go, we should look at it. He goes, go ahead. So I walk over And I start trying to fucking open this utility box. The bee starts swarming. Now, as this is happening, my brother's trying to get his phone because he's laughing his ass off at me, because I look up and I go, oh shit, they're pissed off. And he goes, yeah, of course.
You fucked with them.
Instead of leaving them alone, I full bore open this thing, right? Now, at this point, I look like a bear, like, on the documentaries, like when they're trying to move a log and there's a nest in there. The bees start swarming me and they start stinging the shit out of me and they're in my shirt. So I just start running and flailing in the air. And my brother's just laughing. And I'm like, they're after me. They're after me. And
Please tell me Caleb got that on video.
No, he didn't. And he's so pissed himself. So I'm running and I'm getting stung. I haven't been stung by a bee and I don't know how long, B-word. But my left arm is just covered. I had stingers hanging out. I look back. My mom's dog gets stung by a bee. So she starts running towards me. My brother's sort of walking because they're not attacking him. So anyways, I get stung. My brother finally catches up about 2 blocks away after I ran, which is stupid to do, by the way. Heads up if your bees are attacking, because they get attracted to the carbon monoxide you're releasing, the heat and like your energy. So I'm standing there like breathing heavy now because I'm out of shape. And my brother's looking at me and he's pulling the stingers out of my arms. And all of a sudden the swarm comes back. 2 blocks away, they find me and I go, they're fucking back. And they start going at me again. And I keep running. And my brother goes, it looked like Forrest Gump. You just dropped everything and ran. So I proved that I'm dumb because I went for it. But then on the way back, we had to walk back that way to get to his house. Now I already smell like bee pheromones, right? Because that's what they do. I decide I'm going to film the bee's nest still. So then my brother's other dog gets stung. My brother didn't get stung, and then they attacked me again, and I ran again. But that's reason number 2. The episode is brought to you by the letter B.
So we've got bukkake, we've got bees.
Yes.
And we've got
Best Foods mayonnaise, apparently.
Best Foods mayonnaise. Yeah.
So this third one's very inappropriate. Put the children to bed, as Inner Idiot Tyler would say, right? So my brother's had this giant bullet forever, okay? And I mean, like this is like a bullet for like a tank, right, or something. Like he's had this, like the things you could buy at like army surplus stores, like
I cannot believe you're going to tell this story.
So there's this giant bullet. Like I'm at his house today or yesterday. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm gonna like, cause we have a mom. Well, of course I have a mom, but we're fucking with my mom, right? Like we wrestle her and stuff and like throw her around. So I grab this giant bullet and I start poking her with it. And I'm running through the house. And Caleb my brother yells at me like a dad yells at a child, like, Jacob, stop poking mom with that. And I look at him, I go, what the fuck's his problem? Why? And my brother then starts to make the face like, I can't tell you. It's confusing. Mom's here. I'll tell you later, but knock it off. But I'm not catching on, sort of like your Best Foods joke. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong? So I go to poke her again, and he gets mad. And he goes, Jacob, put it back. That is dangerous. I'm like, Keith, this bullet's not going to explode. It's old. So then my sister's like, yeah, Jake, it's a bullet. You shouldn't do that with bullets. I'm thinking, no, you don't point guns at people. You can do this. So finally I go put the bullet back, right? Everybody loads up in their cars, and we're going to go to dinner. And my brother looks at me in the car, and he goes, Jake, I used that as a sex toy on a girl once. That's why I don't want you to fucking poke mom. I felt so bad at that moment, and for multiple reasons, B-word. So much is going through my head, right? It's like, okay, it was used as a sex toy. Okay, I was touching it. Okay, I hope it wasn't a sex toy on my own brother, but he said it was on somebody else. So, okay, don't know what he does, don't care what he does, but okay. 2, I poked my mom with it, as my brother probably poked somebody else with it while poking somebody else, if you know what I mean. 3, I wasn't getting why he was telling me to stop, and I was like the stupid 10-year-old going, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. And the whole time he's just going, that's been places that nobody needs to know. But then I was thinking, why is it on the fucking bookshelf? 4th reason now, I guess, for the letter B.
Yeah.
But so that happened.
Well, I'm going to give you a 5th reason here.
Okay.
You never specified if it was the butthole or not. So there's a good chance that the bookshelf bullet was in the butthole.
The triple B action, bro?
Of your birth mother.
Not my birth mom. No. It was not in a birth mom. What I'm saying is it was in somebody else, B-word.
I know, Caleb. But you were touching. I meant to say you were touching your birth mom with it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
that's an Arkansas joke. You can't do that here, dude.
No.
Now, do you think? Okay, so people from the South, right? When they make jokes about like incest,
Trash
or
cans?
we make well, yeah, trash cans. But when we make jokes like, oh, the guy must like want his sister. He's from Kentucky. Like, do you think certain states have certain states they talk about?
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's like,
Yeah.
what's your favorite state to compare it to? I know mine. What's yours?
Alabama, Georgia.
Okay, mine's
Mississippi.
Alabama or Kentucky.
Okay.
Those two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
You
a
got the
side thought.
7 in Tennessee, who's a 10 IC when you're in Tennessee. It's crazy.
Never heard that.
Me either. I just made it up.
Good for you. Good for you, B-Word. On the fucking spot, bro. So today's episode is brought to you by the letter B. I just wanted you to be aware of that. That's how eventful my trip's been so far, dude.
I really wish that we were on an episode of Pee Wee Herman, so the chair would go, "That's the word of the day."
Oh, I think of like Bert and Ernie. Like, hey, Bert.
Yeah.
Like Sesame Street word of the day. Like Count comes out, Big Bird every now and then.
Elmo loves bullets in his butthole.
Oh, dude.
loves I love you.
That's
You
Barney.
love
That's
me.
Barney, B-Word.
Oh, that is, isn't it?
That's the wrong one, dude.
La 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 la. Bullets in the butthole.
Why are we singing fucking Sesame? Knock it off, B-Word. Let's move on. You're the commander of this ship, and you usually keep us going straight. And now you're fucking veering off with me, and we're gonna go into Valhalla of Doom.
It's season 2, bro. We're on a whole nother
We don't
level.
do seasons.
We're doing seasons only
we're
because
not. We are not.
I have categories that we're going into.
Oh God.
So, speaking of some strange things, we both had the opportunity to watch Doctor Strange this last week.
We did.
And I actually had the fortune to see it twice. I saw it opening night, and then I went to Sacramento and I saw it on Sunday. Loved it both times. I was very, very happy with what they did. I think I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think that they did some good things on it, but before we get in and break it down, kind of what was your overall gist of the movie? Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it. I'd probably get a 7 or a 7.5. I told you before I was going to probably give it a 6.5. You know me. I'm usually spot on when I'm like very even and keel about a rating. I'm not when it's like I'm overhyped or underwhelmed, right? But most of the time when I'm like, oh, it'll probably be this, it's like I'm on it. Yeah, I mean, it hit parts that I wanted. Sam Raimi, I like, and I like that they sort of let him be Sam Raimi.
Right.
We'll get into more of that later, but I also like that it almost introduced horror to the MCU in a very good way, in a very digestible way for younger audiences too, to get them started, if that makes sense.
I think what I loved about this is that it wasn't a solo movie, but it also wasn't a team up movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Marvel has a big problem. And here's the big problem is that you've introduced all of these characters, right? So like you think of Eternals, and you've got the head of the Celestial like coming through the earth, and you've got hands coming through. Mm-hmm. And not once does like Hawkeye know about it, right? Not once does Doctor Strange go and investigate it, right? But what I liked about this movie is that you had this big issue with Wanda, and Wong was right there. And as simple as that seems, I think that there does need to be more smaller crossovers like that to justify what the investigation is or to justify what they're handling. But I appreciated that in this movie. What was your overall opinion when it came to the horror? Because I thought that this is a great way to like introduce Blade. It's a great way to do. Is it the Black Knight? The Black Knight. I think that they probably could have done a better job with Morbius being Sony, right? But I think that that's a really good genre of comic books when you start to talk about the horror, the original Defenders, when you start talking about different things like that. It was violent, it was good, but it wasn't bloody and gory. They kept the PG-13 on it.
Yeah, it didn't do what most horrors do now, where it's either over the top gore fest, horror porn, or the jump scares. Like they had one, I guess, sort of jump scare, but it was done in a very, very well way.
Yeah. Was that the one in the cave that you're talking about?
Yeah, and with the red smoke.
Yeah.
Mist, whatever the fuck you want to call it. That was probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I thought that was amazing. I liked how quick it was. I liked how it was scary enough, not too scary, but also it cut, so it was like horror buildup and a horror scene, but then back to MCU as normal. Now, I do agree with you about the big problem. I think there's a few big problems that you usually bring up is that, they kill too many people off.
Mm-hmm.
They've done too much in the sense of crossovers and stuff. Now that all we do is expect, like when people heard Multiverse of Madness, I think the reason people aren't as excited is this movie did have some predictability, like all of MCU films do.
Yeah.
Also, I do give them a cop out for that, though, to be upfront, because there's already the comics that exist, so we already sort of know the storyline. So yes, and comics are basically good guy wins, bad guy loses, right? So predictability has to happen. It does. It's
to a certain extent, yeah.
You can't Sixth Sense a movie like this, right? You can't do that with these types of things because it just fucks with everybody's mind and then nobody's happy, right? The fanboys don't get it. I thought they delivered on fan service. I think that's one of MCU's bigger problems, in my opinion, compared to you, is the fan service element, that all they're trying to do is appease everybody. And so back to the point I was trying to make about the problem they had going into this is we heard Multiverse. We just finished No Way Home. And we're going, oh my God, who are they going to bring? You can bring so many people. You can have a variant of this. You can have what was it? Tom Cruise Iron Man. You can have Iron Man, Superior Iron Man, and beat Tom Cruise. You can have a variant of Doctor Strange. You can have this. You can have Loki. You can have 19 different versions. You can have, and it gets to a point where it's like, not every film is Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
Right.
You don't need 60 heroes. You don't need everybody flying into everything. You don't need everything to be intertwined, interwebbed. Like, I can see that there are parts of Moon Knight for it. It sort of pisses me off that they're not as connected, because why did we wait so long for the show to be released? You get what I mean? Like, it makes more sense if, like, okay, they weren't releasing Moon Knight, so then the very last episode would be part of a trailer or a build-up for it, and all those happen. And lately, MCU has been failing at that. It used to be the case.
But we got spoiled, though. I mean, you even think about like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
right?
Like I remember when Thor the Dark World, I think, was coming out, and I was watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time, and they were doing lead-in stories for Thor the Dark World, like, and back then it was everything's connected, and it really wasn't everything's connected, but now literally everything's connected, and so I think to a certain point, though, what I thoroughly enjoyed about this film, and it leads into what we were talking about there, is that it was a standalone film.
Yes and no.
Well, okay.
It's not even, I mean, this is the first hero movie we have where it's not even really about the hero, if we're going to be upfront.
Well, it was a continuation of WandaVision.
Well, and it's more, in my opinion, this is almost more of a Wanda movie than a Doctor Strange movie.
I think they did some very solid things for Doctor Strange, though. I think that they introduced him being influenced by evil and dark forces. Mm-hmm. I think they introduced, obviously, Clea. That's a huge storyline in the comics. They wrapped up the storyline with Palmer, his love interest. Mm-hmm. They did some really good things in that I think will help the character move forward. But I think that Doctor Strange is going to be a much bigger character as we go forward in the MCU.
Oh, I agree. I think, but another point I want to make about what MCU has a problem with is they don't support, and I'm not trying to go down a political route with this or anything weird, but they don't really support their female characters very well in representation. I agree. Like the perfect example, right? ScarJo, oh my God, yes. Yeah. I mean, they could release a silent film of that, and all of us fanboys would go, let's just be upfront with ourselves.
Oh yeah. Okay? No, I'm totally with that.
That movie came 6 years too late. To be upfront, I mean, I understand the storyline; it made sense for it and stuff, but
I think did it though? Because there was the CEO of Marvel at the time. It wasn't Feige, but whoever he was. I know who. Yeah, he was the one that was really cock blocking that movie from coming out, and it should have came out Civil War time. It should have came out prior to that. I agree with you there. So I was happy to see what they did with Wanda.
Yeah, but the point on that is, B-word, I feel like this is half of a Wanda film because they're afraid. I know they gave her the show, but it was also WandaVision,
Right.
and it dealt with that. And the show started out great and sort of ended on a but it makes you feel like, too, like you're afraid to put a film behind this character.
I don't think that
A
they
whole
are.
film.
I still think that they're going to do a House of M storyline.
I don't. I think they've already, I think in their eyes, they feel this is close enough to House of M. I really do.
I think so.
Because also, I mean, yeah, they're not going to say she's, of course, you know, and I could be wrong. She didn't die in that cloud of red cloud when the building falls down. Spoiler alert. But you know what I mean? Like, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. We don't know.
Well,
But
I know
I
because
think
the actress signed another
doesn't matter.
multi-movie
That doesn't matter anymore.
film
That doesn't
contract.
matter anymore. That could be old scenes, B-word. That could be multiverse variant scenes. That's
Yeah.
the thing. They have cop-outs now where they could film like an old Captain America scene, right, from the 70s and say it's in the new film. That's the way this goes. They do time travel now. We have variants now. We have alternate universes now. So anything goes. You can sign on a 6-movie deal. It doesn't mean you're alive.
That's
Look,
true.
Black Widow's the perfect example, right? She was dead in Endgame, and then her movie came out after.
I'm really happy you said Black Widow because initially I thought you were going to say Black Panther, and I was like, oh fuck, he's going there.
No, but I like because She-Hulk's another example, right? That show's going to come out,
Yeah.
and I think there's the misrepresentation on that end of the spectrum because there's a lot of great women characters in the MCU and DC and stuff, but you know that they don't utilize properly, and I think they're still afraid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with you there. How do you think that they handled Wanda though? Like the whole storyline of her going after her kids and just the way that she reacted in trying to find them and the way that she handled the grief and all of that sort of stuff.
I didn't like how, and I talked about how there was predictability in the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't like how it was so coincidentally just laid out a plan like in the first 10 minutes to get the movie going. I have problems with that when it's like, okay, how do we get the movie going? All right, do this, this, and this. All right, now the movie starts. And it's like, okay, like you did all that, and now you've also taken this character where, like, WandaVision's a perfect example where you built up to where she's almost a villain, right?
Yep.
She's not an anti-hero. She's not a total villain, but she's also not a hero anymore, right?
Right.
And this just went full blown. Okay, we'll continue that. Now she's a villain. But even though she's a villain, like there's still, it still feels like there's no repercussions for her, which is fucking sad.
Yeah.
I mean, just let's be fucking frank here. She does all this terrible shit and nobody does. I guess the only character that we can sort of compare it to is Winter Soldier.
Well, you can kind of talk about the Hulk too, with
Yeah.
how much physical damage he does. And I agree with Winter Soldier. I think that's probably a better example. I do think though that the arc of Wanda, looking back, was set up pretty well. And in Feige we trust, right? So you look at Age of Ultron. She wasn't introduced there. She was introduced in an end credit scene. I forget what the movie was in the end credit scene, but you're introduced to
2, right? Wasn't it Iron Man 2?
I don't remember.
Sorry.
But but she was introduced in an end credit scene with her brother, and then she's fighting the Avengers, and you're dealing with all of that. Then she's captured, and there's a bond between her and Vision, and then you're looking at the Infinity War and Endgame arcs, and then you go into WandaVision, and it continues to expand on the character, and then you look at Multiverse of Madness, and really this woman, from an emotional toll, there were times that where she actually had a point, like Doctor Strange used the Darkhold and all of a sudden that's okay, but she uses the Darkhold and it's bad. Now I realize that their intentions were different, but it's a point nonetheless. And so I do think that as far as the character goes, she's probably had more of an emotional journey in the MCU than arguably any other character. Would you agree?
Yeah, because also they made her lose her shitty accent Where the fuck did that go? And I didn't even remember that it was gone until my wife went, didn't she used to talk really crappy?
Yeah.
And I go, what? And then she goes, like, oh, Ukraine, Russia, whatever. I don't know. Fucking her accent wasn't. Now it's gone. Like, it's like they slowly faded it out.
They did.
And like every now and then it barely creeps back in. You're like,
well,
nope, don't go there.
Creeped in WandaVision too. It was just really weird. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. But well, speaking of emotional struggles that her character went through, there's a couple real life scenarios that I want to talk about, and we've kind of shied away from these storylines because I feel like everybody's talking about them. But I want to kind of bring our own spin on this topic. So more or less, I want to talk with you about toxic relationships, and I want to talk with you about that because you and I have had our own toxic relationships in the past, and there's a couple of them that are in the news. And while I don't pay a whole lot of attention to them in a sense where the outcomes of them I can kind of care less, I at least recognize that they're there. So I'll just tell you what these are. Obviously for the Oscars, you had Chris Rock come out on stage and he made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and her hair. And she had just come out and said that she suffers from some disease where it requires hair loss, alopecia or something like that. Yeah. Will Smith laughed at the joke, got a dirty look from Jada, went up and slapped Chris Rock. So that's number one. Number two, in the news right now, there's a lot of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard going on. And that's probably one of the most toxic relationships that I remember. When I say remember, I'm not saying that I was there or a part of it, but it's one of the most toxic relationships I've seen.
That's out in the open for like celebrity status,
in a long time. But it does remind me of some relationships that I've been in, but also like more relationships that I've witnessed with friends going through it because they've gone through some shit like that. What do you have to say on these two situations initially, as far as just your overall opinion of them, and then we'll try to dissect them from there?
So also coming from, toxic relationships, being sometimes the toxic avenger myself, going through my own struggles or strifes or, mistakes, and then other people doing it to me, I guess. I feel it's very relatable to the whole WandaVision Doctor Strange thing. One person's allowed to use a Darkhold, and it's okay. Both can, and it's sort of okay, but not. Like in the case of the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, I've been following a little more than you. I will shout out a fabulous YouTube show I love, Mr. H Reviews. He's been dissecting this intensely. I will say he's a little biased towards one end, but I also feel the whole internet as a whole is biased towards one end, which is very pro Johnny Depp and
pro
anti Amber Heard, which is so funny that it's drastically backwards from where it was years ago with things coming out.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think that's the one of the biggest problems of both of these is that the People's Court is one of the stupidest, sickest problems on this planet.
Yeah.
Because people are always in the People's Court guilty before proven innocent, especially nowadays. And it is very hard to get that back. And that's even in the case of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith and, other toxic relationships that have been out there. I guess we don't enjoy talking about them because it's almost like politics where if you choose a side, you're fucked either way. And it's not that, I mean, from what I've seen, I'd side more with Johnny Depp. I'll be up front there. So I'm fucked either way, I guess. I'd side more with Will Smith, but also I'm one of those people too. If people don't want help, they don't get help. If people put themselves in situations over and over again, at some point, how do you also fault? I'm trying to put the best example here, B-word. Like, I'm not saying like if somebody beats a dog and the dog's choosing to live there, it's the dog's fault and not the owner who's beating its fault.
But the dog does eventually attack the kid if there's a kid in the household.
Right.
So there's repercussions.
What I'm saying is, let's say in this scenario, Jada Pinkett Smith's beating Will Smith. He's the dog, right? But Will Smith won't move anywhere else. You can't... you're not blaming Will Smith for him being beat by Jada Pinkett Smith, but you're also like, dude, what the fuck? Like, and I guess the way I'm trying to put it is because you've had friends like this, like you said, right? Where you're looking at him going, why are you still in that fucking relationship?
Right. Right.
It's terrible. And at some point,
Right.
the people do this. They get that nature in their brain going, well, it's your fucking fault too that you're still there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I have an issue with in both of these relationships is that um it's so codependent. Like it's a really weird codependency, toxic, like it's magnetic. Like these people are to me, these people are attracted to this in a sense where, like with Will Smith, you know, Jada came out and there was the entanglement that she had with whatever that wannabe rapper's name is. And he, you know, he was her son's age or something. I don't know much about it. I just know the 20,000-foot headlines
So,
if you go there.
Yeah.
But they slept together. They had, you know, a sexual relationship. And, you know, as a man, that can't feel good. You know, I've been cheated on. That doesn't feel good. It definitely doesn't make you feel more self-confident, you know? And so it does play an effect to Will specifically, but I'm not saying that Will's pure in this scenario. I mean, he's
No.
got his own faults, you know? And so what you see right now is you see Jada and her reactions and her on Facebook with her Red Table Talk and everybody getting involved in that. But I think from being in toxic relationships before, what I see is that Will overreacted to the reaction he got from Jada, and he hit Chris Rock.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess the way I look at it, B word is, and it's not, I'm not doing this stance for men, right? And I'm not saying it's all, but I guess in the vein of what we're talking about, and because we are men, that we can relate to that more and gone through those struggles, is back to what we were saying. Like, okay, she has alopecia, right?
Yeah.
Somebody made a joke about it. We are very inclined to say that we need to be very positive towards women's bodies and things like that. A man goes bald. I'm balding, right? So just being up front, I'm losing my hair up front, right? I wear a lot of hats. Somebody makes a joke about me. Now, mind you, I'm not really gonna fucking care because you know me. I think, you know, make jokes about people, but we don't get the same. Men don't get that same defense of like
No.
body positivity. Like it's more like, oh, he must hatfish people, or oh, you know, men just bald anyways, or anything like that. And I understand in women it's rarer for those cases, so maybe it's a little more, you know, I'm not a woman, maybe it's a little more, you know, and we value women's hair a different way. But I guess in the defense it's like, well, why don't men get stuck up for in a lot of situations? Like Johnny Depp's getting beat, right? Apparently, like physical abuse. And we're quick to point going, that can't happen. He's a man.
Yeah.
Men can't go to HR for sexual harassment because he's a man, right? What kind of man? I mean, and even as guys, let's be honest, we've joked about it. Like, oh man, if I was in 6th grade and my teacher was trying to, I would love that. But in reality, it's like, there's so many stigmas behind it. You can't be real.
Yeah. When you're talking about some of these things, and I think the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing is probably the one that right now hits me the most, more than the Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith one. Because do I think that Johnny Depp hit her? I absolutely believe that Johnny Depp hit her. Whether it was a slap, a punch, a push, whatever, he got aggressive in some form, right? Mm-hmm. Was it acceptable? No. But I do look at what she did and the position she put him in, and the manners in which that they spoke to each other, because you hear them reading each other's text messages, and just what a toxic, nasty type of relationship there. And I feel terrible for both of them in a sense that, you know, I listened to Johnny Depp's upbringing and them talking about his mom and how she was abusive and whatever. And so, you know, you talk about children, and children are attracted to the qualities of a parent.
Complex.
Yeah. And so he found his mom in this other person. I don't know much about what she went through and how that relates to her. But I do agree. I think that domestic violence is not good. And when you start talking about violence towards men, I know here in my community, there's a they call it, you know, a battered women's shelter. I mean, I think that's the slang, but but it's a safe housing for domestic violence. And up until a few years ago, men weren't allowed.
No.
Because there's a lot of women who get abused, and putting a man in that situation makes them feel uncomfortable. And so there wasn't really a place for men to go. And when you start to think about some of the struggles that men deal with, men commit suicide at a far greater rate than women do. Men are more susceptible to diseases like bipolar than women are. Men have a shorter lifespan. We deal with things, and I'm not trying to say, hey, for the women that are listening, hey, feel pity for us. I'm not trying to say that, but these are scientific things that men deal with, and I think that there's a stigma out there that it's inappropriate for men to talk about it, and it's inappropriate for men to ask for help.
Well, I agree, and I like, so it makes me think of there was a big term going around a while. It still does, but a couple years ago, and it reminds me of like things like Gillette commercials and stuff, right? Toxic masculinity. It's a very very decisive, argumentative word.
Yeah.
In the sense of, I always have looked at it as the chicken and the egg syndrome.
Right.
Did toxic masculinity come, or what part of it came first? Men just being bravado frat boy asses that want to talk about dicks and treat people bad all the time, and whatever goes into toxic masculinity? Or also, did it come from bottling up and having that thing like, okay, a man gets beat, he has nowhere to go, nobody to talk to, no battered shelter for him, right?
Yep.
In a relationship, and and no offense, because guys are this way, we all make fun of each other, we rag each other, we call each other stuff. The difference is, though, too, with my true friends like you, B-Word, we can rag each other and make fun of things, but if I needed something, I called you, I could do that, right?
100%.
But not everybody has that. And so I think also toxic masculinity has somewhat built up as a shell for some people. And I'm not defending it, but what I'm saying is, I think that some people take it in the wrong way of going, well, I'm a man, I should be this way, so I'll act this way, I'll do these things. It's like the kid that starts smoking at the smoking section at school that has no business, doing it because they're doing it to be cool almost. I think a lot of men out there, and there are toxic men, let's just be upfront here, but there are a lot of men that have toxic masculinity, and I think it's a shell. And so it's like, I think problems create more problems.
They do.
And so when you have an issue, you have a mental health problem, a bipolar disorder, or anything, and other things happen and build up and build up and build up, eventually something will explode. And whether that's societal, whether that's internally, whether that's individually, whether that's group oriented, that happens.
I agree. There's some statistics here that I want to read. Nearly 1 in 10 men experience depression and anxiety. Men die by suicide 3.5 times more than women. Men experience a high suicide rate than women, and depression, when left untreated, can in some cases reach a crisis point for men, as I would assume women too. 6 in 10 men, about 6 in 10 men, so 60%, experience at least one trauma in their lives, which is pretty significant when you think about that. I mean, there's a lot of different traumas, but I think sometimes, for guys, we're talking about how, when you're dealing with things, it's always about, hey, just rub some dirt on it. Hey, get back up. Hey, don't be a pussy. Hey, et cetera, so forth, and just go from there,
Right. I mean, that also goes into things like, PTSD, men in the military, what they have to go through, and what people go through just in life. Right. And I'm not saying, everybody needs a safe room and you need this and that, but I think a lot of the world just dictates like, okay, you're a guy, get up, as you said, rub dirt on it, get over it. How could you be sexually harassed? How could that happen to you?
Right.
Or perfect example, B-Word. You're in an office. Everybody's at a boardroom table. And I guarantee you, if you did this study, I could be wrong, but you have half women and half men in the room, right? And somebody goes, hey, we need to talk about this. Somebody was sexually harassed. Guarantee you, if you polled the people, they would say it was probably a guy in that room.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. Statistics have shown most likely it is, but also what part of the statistics could be skewed because a man has not come forward?
And I think that that's also a part there too with the whole Me Too movement. And this might get us in trouble here, but you look at Amber Heard as one of the faces of the Me Too movement, and you look at some of the claims that she's making now, and it just doesn't seem to hold water. And then you hear about athletes, high school athletes, collegiate athletes that get accused of doing something, right? Whatever the something is. And then you hear years later, after they've passed their prime, that the woman recants. And I'm not saying that this is a woman's fault and it's a women's problem. I do think that it's a problem. It's a societal problem that needs to be addressed in a sense where men can be able to have a conversation and feel heard too. Does that make
be
sense?
be a man, but also, be able to have feelings and stuff, right? Like, because
Right.
I'll be upfront. I see a therapist for things I've done with. I think we've talked about a little on the show, but
Yep.
I think it's good for me. It's helped me to vent and get things out, but also realize I have feelings and deal with them because I'm trying to be a very good father to my children and a good friend and a good person in society. But like, I had a close friend whose son was accused of an issue with a girl. He was a high school athlete and then lost all his scholarships, got kicked off the team and everything. And then after graduation, the girl came out and said she lied.
Yeah.
Girl has no repercussions. Boy's life has changed and sort of ruined. And yeah, he can try to pick it up, but it doesn't just work that way. And I bring this story up because it's relatable to what we talk about. But this is a lesson I've talked to my oldest daughter about, is you have to really be careful of what you say in society.
You do.
You have to be really careful what you put out on the internet or do anything or lie or say that. I think the other reason, B word, we might, and just being upfront, we might be a little, what's the word? Not cross, but like, we're hurt by the
Biased?
system. We are very
Oh, okay.
biased.
Yeah.
We're hurt by
Yeah.
the system though, because we're both dads
Yeah.
that went through the court system, and it is very biased.
It's
towards single
one-sided.
dads.
I will say, so, you live in the state of Washington. I live in the state of Nevada. And I'll get into some things here. When I was, I was a teenage father, and I married my daughter's mom when we were 18, and we decided to try to make things work. And should we have made things work at that time? Probably not. We probably just should have said, hey, we have a baby. Let's try to co-parent and make that our goal. But we felt forced to try to make it work in a number of different ways. And so we tried and we failed, as simple as that. So, but when we split up and we went to go get the divorce, we had to go through a custody battle and we had to do all of these things. And there was a lot of claims that she made that were unacceptable and inappropriate and things that I will never accuse people of doing. And I felt like I had to fight for everything or against everything, and I still lost. And so what I mean by I lost is that I lost custody, and it wasn't until several years later that I won custody back. And that was something that was almost unheard of in Nevada, because I literally went to court for probably 40 minutes, and the court granted me custody that same day. And it was this weird scenario because there is the stigma in my state, as I'm sure there is in your state, that if you have a penis, in the eyes of the court, you don't have the same rights. Like the rights for mothers are so much easier granted or easily granted than they are for fathers. And my state has been doing better in that area as of late, but even with my cousin's ex-husband and everything that he went through with his child's mom, there's no reason as to why he shouldn't have custody. He's a decent dad. The mom is not the greatest, and it really just, I don't know, I guess you feel disenfranchised as a man showing up to court. And I know that there's a lot of talk about women's rights and glass ceilings and all this sort of stuff, but for men, there's these stigmas too.
Yeah, I mean, and they're adverse though, right? So they're not total opposite, but they're for different reasons. But the same thing for you when I went to court, and I'm not going to get into all details of mine for multiple reasons, but I just remember when I went to meet my lawyer, first lawyer I ever hired. I was very young. I never married my daughter's mom, but we came close and we were together for a while. And I walked in and all he did was go in a nice lawyer way, fuck, I wish you were a woman.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? And he goes, this would be way easier.
And yeah,
And
that
he was
that-
a lawyer for years, 20
that's almost
years.
that's almost identical to when I met with my first lawyer too. He says, so I have two questions for you. What kind of visitation do you want, and how much child support can you afford?
So I got asked pretty much the same thing, was how much can you pay? And it's not that they're bowing out. They just know the system. They know how it's going to go out. And he goes, okay, how much time do you want?
Yeah.
And I said this, he goes, okay, so if you want, and for example, if you want 50%, we're going to fight for 75. We'll probably settle at 25, between 25 and 50.
Yep.
He goes, child support, how much money do you make? And I remember at the time, he's like, you make too much money. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I was like, no, I don't. He goes, no, to you, it doesn't seem like enough, but for your age and everything you're doing, you're making too much money, and it's just things like that you're looking at going, damn, I'm already having a bad relationship, whether we were toxic or not. I don't want to lose my kid, whether I was right or wrong. I'm still trying to go through this. Now I also just have an uphill battle because I'm a guy and a penis, and apparently I'm not a fit a fit parent compared to the other one due to my gender, genitalia, however the fuck you want to put it. But so I had that, and then I just remember he sat down and goes, well, let's look at the types of judges the judges we can have. And I was like, why? And he goes, well, we're going to see. I know this one's this way. I know this one's this way. I know this one will be totally biased against it. And I was just like, and it felt more like we were preparing to cheat for a test.
Yeah.
And get all the right answers beforehand and just make sure everything was done right. And I mean, I hate the court system. I hate everything about it. There's no real room for gray area, but there is, if that makes sense. It's like everything's black and white until you need a gray area. And then when it's a gray area, we're going to define it one way or the other. And it just makes it really hard. And would I change anything with my child? No. Would I change anything with my mental state? No. My relationship? No. I mean, everything, I'm still happy with my life and where it is. There were hard parts of it. But the main thing is, I'm a guy, and what I went through is not discounted because I'm a guy.
Well, and that's kind of what it's talking about as far as trauma. If kids are taken away from a mom for whatever reason, that's a traumatic experience, not only for the mom, but also for the kids. Likewise, when men who want to be a part of children's lives are prohibited or are restricted in ways, it's traumatic not only for the man, but also for the kids. And I think that you and I have done a phenomenal job in spite of everything that we've gone through with the traumas of custody and all that sort of stuff. Because we've got great kids. But it's not to say that the kids don't feel the traumas going forward, right? I mean, your oldest still deals with the mom separated from the dad and having to bounce, and my kid still deals with that, even though that she's an adult. It's a tough thing to do, and I guess my point here is that men deal with this stuff too, and I don't want to make this a men-centric issue and discount any women's issues, because that's not the goal of this. But you do have to realize that you can only man up so long before you run out of energy. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you can only man up so long, but also, like, as men, we need to be more open to it. So, the adverse side of that coin, B word, is, are we trying to be too much of a man at times?
I think
are
we do.
Not open enough? Me and you have had moments where I've opened up more over the years. I think a very eye-opening moment for me was, B word, was when we hung out in Seattle, and we were talking about some stories, and one of them, you're like, I had no idea about that or that about you, and I've known you for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And it's not that I hide things. I don't tell everybody everything, but it was just eye-opening to me that one of my best friends still didn't know something that was very important in my life.
Yeah.
And a detail. And it was just like, wow. And as I said, I think sometimes we need to stop fucking manning up and just live and be more open to things.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes me back, and not that I want to be one of those people that cancels jokes or how we do things or, stigmas or stereotypes or anything. But I mean, it's funny. You go to a party, right, with families, and the joke is, oh, the dads aren't watching the kids. They're all going to, be in the pool and go crazy. They're over at the barbecue. The women are all, cackling hens over there drinking lemonade. And that's the stereotypes we grew up with. And they're still pretty true to this day. That's why they're called stereotypes, right? But at some point, we need to realize, like, mental health is very important for both sides. Being open is very important for both sides. Things happen to both sides for different reasons. Adverse reactions happen. And we can't discount things like that Will Smith might be going through in a talk show. We can't discount Johnny Depp's situation with Amber Heard because he's a man.
Right.
And I mean, that's my soapbox moment for the day. I mean, it's just hard to see. And I mean, it's hard to see both ways. I mean, if he was beating the shit out of Amber Heard, of course I'd be like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And like I said, like you said, I do agree. He probably did do something. To what extent, I don't know. We'll never really know the full details of it. But the court case is also about him, countersuing her, if I'm correct, right?
It's about defamation of character, that whatever her newspaper article or whatever that she wrote harmed him financially. Harmed his character to affect his financials, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I think, typically this show's very provides levity in a lot of areas. We're usually joking, laughing, having fun, but I do think it's important for us to recognize that there are serious issues that are out there with people, and there are traumas that people go through, and that in those moments you have to find who your support system is. You have to lean on them, and it can be a counselor, it can be a therapist, it can be a spouse, it can be family or friends, it can be religion, it can be whatever it is that you want it to be. But you have to find an outlet to be able to express what you're going through, number one, and number two, you have to get enough. I guess the one area that I'll say that you have to man up and talk to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to
Open
say,
up,
okay,
yeah.
I'm putting in a whole lot of effort in doors that are closed. Let me find one that's open and put some effort in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because my final point on this would probably be just be open. Be open, and whether that's your mind, whether that's somebody else, whether that's accountability, anything, just have more of an open mindset, to get help, or if a friend says they do, to get that, and I guess that's as I said, my final point there of how I think about this.
Well, good. Well, decent talk.
It was fun.
And I'll let you, I don't know that we're going to hit the hour mark today, but I know that you're down there in Vegas, and enjoy the rest of your time down there. Tell the family hi for me. And with that, Jake, what do you got for us?
Thanks for all the dirty talk. Come back and get sanitized. If you're a fan of our show, be sure to check out this one to stay sanitized.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Mike.
And I'm Tabby, and we are Happy Hour Podcast.
We wanted to come to you on this episode and tell you about the world record we are going to break.
The longest running podcast was 36 hours. We are going to be shooting for 37 hours and or more.
This event will happen on August 26th of this year on our 1-year anniversary.
Via live stream on our Facebook page and a YouTube exclusive.
We've also got some help
keeping us awake and the audience entertained
from awesome podcasting friends like
Tallboy Radio,
Wheel of Horror,
Pub Time Podcast,
Bleach Bros Podcast,
Dad's on DayQuill,
Ryan Leskis of Pain Productions,
Cheap Seat Reviews,
Florida Men on Florida Man,
Matty Ice Media,
Listen Podcast,
Whiskey Hell Podcast,
Derazzled Podcast,
Porn Stash Podcast,
That Damn Podcast,
and Designated Quizzers.
We would love for you to join us.
And maybe bring along some coffee.
See you on August 26th.